Parent and you are constantly struggling to help your kids fight allergies, colds, viruses, etc. Does it feel like they're constantly sick, especially this time of year with back to school? Sickness is in full swing. And so this video is to give you an insight into some holistic alternative things to do to help support your child's immune system, especially this time of year. Allergies and asthma are continuing to rise, and we're noticing more and more congestion amongst kids. And so, really, what's going on and how can we help support them? Well, we know that in order to build a strong immune system, we have to first look at stress. Now, in stress is inherently, when we're more stressed out, makes us immunocompromised. Now, that essentially means we're more susceptible when things come our way. So, understanding we are constantly exposed to things. And so there are constantly things in our environment that there's bacteria on this table, and our body is building that immune response so that as we're exposed to things, we're building an immune response. And so that's why we're not always getting sick. And so we come in contact with different things throughout the day, throughout with other people, and especially kiddos in school. But when we're more stressed out, it makes us more susceptible for when we build that immune response for the pathogen to win over. And so it makes us more susceptible for us to get sick. So, what we want to do is we want to focus on decreasing the stress in order to strengthen the immune system so that we're better able to fight when we're exposed to things. So, it really is about making our bodies have more bandwidth in the system so that when it's exposed to stress, it adapts, it regulates, it mounts an immune response, and it wins. And so, really, that has to do with how do we decrease stress? Well, we decrease stress on the body through stimulating the parasympathetic nervous system or the vagus nerve. Now, the vagus nerve, not only it goes straight to the parasympathetic nervous system, which is resting and digesting, versus fight or flight, which is stress or the gas pedal, but it also connects to the gut. And we do know that there's a big part of our immune system is housed in the gut. So that we're going to touch on a little bit more as we talk about diet and in the gut. But one of the biggest things too is that when we see we're constantly getting sick and then we end up on antibiotics, it's great to have the antibiotics when we're sick. But then we know that chronic use of antibiotics over time does impact the gut. And so much of the immune system is in the gut. And so we end up, so many kiddos are on this cycle of feeling like they just can't get out of the hamster wheel of getting sick. And it's how are we assessing the stress aspect and making their bodies better able to support and mount an immune response? But then when they've been on more continuous rounds of antibiotics, etc., then we're also damaging their gut microbiome, which helps with that immune response. And so while it is great to have the antibiotics, especially in the case of something like strep, etc., we know that how do we support and rebuild so that we can get out of this hamster wheel of feeling like we just can't kick the sick. And so one of the things that we were talking about is understanding how we balance the nervous system. And so we were talking about we stimulate the vagus nerve or the parasympathetic nervous system. But where do kids get stressed? So, why are our kiddos stressed? Well, we know that there are lots of different factors, and one of those factors being traditional stress in the form of mental and emotional stress. And so they can be experiencing mental and emotional stress that can be either from parents, especially in young kids, especially in babies. A lot of that it's even maternal mental and emotional stress in utero. But even kiddos that, as they grow older, we know that they regulate to their parents. There's mirror neurons. And so we know that they're regulating, picking up parents' mental and emotional stress. Then we have a huge influx of technology, which is causing all sorts of mental and emotional stress, and how it actually impacts the chemicals in our brain and is designed to do that, designed to stimulate in different ways that mental aspect. So we have mental and emotional stress, and then we have physical stress. Now, physical stress is good in the sense that we want to move our bodies, we want to have good movement. It's very important that we're moving our bodies, we're not living sedentary lifestyles. But slips, falls, accidents, things like that are more negative forms of physical stress. And kiddos are oftentimes doing just that, slipping, falling, etc. on the playground when they're younger, when they're learning to walk, etc. And so while we do want to move our bodies and we do want healthy exercise, there is a level of physical stress. And so we do know that it plays a role. And so how is their body being stressed physically? The last thing we have is we have environmental stress, and that really goes into the diet conversation, what we're breathing conversation, etc. Our food, what we're breathing, what the water we're drinking, anything that's on the external that we're putting into our body that our body has to filter, and that would be medications as well, or the antibiotics. It's saying that, while there may be a time and place, all of that those are things that our body has to filter out. And the more of those things we have, the more demand it is on our body. Not that our body can't handle it, but there's more demand on our body. And so that's why having a diet with good whole foods goes a long way in supporting our body for numerous reasons. But really ultimately is about limiting that toxic load. So that's environmental stress. So those are the ways that we're seeing stress in kiddos and why we're seeing so much stress. And so we want to come in with neurologically focused chiropractic, etc. But we want to regulate that nervous system so that we can move out of this stress response into resting and relaxing so that we can better mount that immune response. So we want to get you out of stress, or your kiddo out of stress, so that your body is primed to mount a healthy immune system and take on anything that can come its way. So that's how having a dysregulated nervous system makes you more susceptible to getting sick. The other thing is it's directly correlated with our sleep. Now, a dysregulated nervous system means that you're going to have a hard time falling asleep. Maybe you're going to wake up a lot at night. Kiddos who frequently wake up at night have a hard time going to sleep, or really in if we're not sleeping well, that's a clear indicator that our body is dysregulated, because that's when our body is going to focus on regulating. And so we want to make sure we're focusing on high quality sleep, because that's going to go directly into sleep, digestion, immune system, focus and behavior, anxiety and depression, among other things. So we really want to focus on sleep. Now, the other thing we want to do is we want to focus on exercise and play. Now, while physical stress is a form of stress on our body, movement is very healthy. And so one of the things we know especially in the Anxious Generation, a book that was written about the rewiring of kids' minds through technology, we know that we've moved away from what he calls in the book a play-based childhood. And so we know that we're overstimulated mentally from technology, from school, etc., and we're understimulated physically. And so we need to make sure kiddos are meant to be active, and they're meant to move, and they're meant to play. And so we want to make sure we're moving our bodies and not just getting stuck indoors where we're really focusing on technology-based play. Another thing that's really important with is movement helps with blood flow. Movement helps actually decrease our stress response, especially in low impact movement, heart rate zones 2 and 3. But it just means that it focuses on developing the brain, especially in kids, in ways that technology doesn't. It helps focus. It helps with learning. It helps with focus. It helps with memory. It helps with social development, and in turn, the immune response. Also, because so much of it is actually going outside and playing as well. And so, in turn, we're getting fresh air, we're getting sunlight, which is vitamin D. Vitamin D is one of the main supplements that we give to help support the immune system. And you can get it best by going outside and you get fresh air, etc. So many good things to support mood, behavior, sleep, etc. And so exercise and play, what really is just movement, just moving our bodies is so important and getting off of technology and moving our bodies in that way. Because especially when it comes to sleep, we know that when we're overstimulated mentally and understimulated physically, it's going to be hard to fall asleep because we're going to have that anxious or that restlessness in our body because we're holding on to extra energy or tension in those places. Now, the last thing is we're going to talk about food because you can't go and talk about the health of the gut and therefore the immune system without then talking about the inflammatory reaction, etc., that can happen with food, whether that be just not eating healthier foods, getting off of more inflammatory based seed oils, more processed foods, etc., or whether that be through food sensitivities that may be causing inflammation in the body, which then also stimulate that immune response. And so we want to make sure that we're eating nutrient dense foods, we're drinking plenty of water, and we're minimizing processed foods, sugar, etc. And that's going to decrease our overall toxic load. And it really is something that makes such a big difference. And really, another thing when it comes to food is the high quality food. But to touch on the sugar, we know that there's a lot of blood sugar dysregulation and especially in kids, and that's directly related to a lower immune system, but even behavioral struggles. If you can think about after your own lunch break, if you eat a carb heavy meal, you have a crash. And so these spikes and crashes in our blood sugar, if we're feeding kids and we're having mainly carb based foods, lots of sugar based snacks, etc., their blood sugar is going to be very dysregulated and it's going to directly feed into their ability to focus in school and their ability to pay attention, their mood regulation, etc. So we want healthy whole foods. We want to regulate the amount of sugar and focus on balancing healthy protein, fat, and carbs. And so we're not just focusing on carb only or sugar only snacks. So, really, ultimately, no one is perfect. There's an 80-20 rule to everything, but truthfully, everything is about balance. But those are some really great ways that you can focus and try to break the cycle and kick the six. So, if you haven't been to a neurologically focused chiropractor yet with your kiddos, that'd be step one. Let's get them scanned. Let's see where their stress response is. Let's talk about how often they've been on antibiotics, how often they're getting sick, what their symptoms are, etc., and get them scanned and make a plan to help support your kiddo moving forward. It really is one of the foundation to so many things is saying, let's get you out of that stress response, regulate your nervous system, and it's the key for everything building up. It's called a bottom up approach, but it's the foundation, and you can't touch the top of the pyramid, which would be cognitive development, etc., if we don't have a foundation where we're regulating our stress response, getting healthy sleep, eating well, and moving our bodies. So focus on the foundation. We'd love to get you scanned and take a deeper dive into your child or your nervous system. Leave a comment if you learned something new and if your child is on the struggle bus and needs to kick the sick.